It's at the top.
Okay.
So do we have everyone from Bangalore team? Anyone can check?
Yes, the team is here.
Okay, cool.
Hey, hi guys. I think we are missing one of them. Venu, we have Naresh also on the team. That was a last minute change done by the department.
Sure.
She's here. She's here. She's here.
Great.
So
Thank you.
we can go through the list.
Okay, so just before we get onto that, this is like how Crowd have done most of their dailies, and they've split everything apart into foreground and background. So the blue ones are foreground, and on the whole, these will need to be simmed. And we're not simming any of the red ones. So there'll be a separate Crowd package for them called BG. So just we'll ignore all of those. And then the green ones are all ACPs, and we've already simmed those. So it's the blue ones that we're doing. So yeah, should we run through all of these? But these are our.
This is not
sims, so this isn't so. It's fine. I can send a list, but it'll all be formatted like this. This is the main thing. So yeah, just doing the blue ones. And so I'll hand over to Andrea to go through the setup, and then we can talk about GLO MAM stuff after that.
Cool. Okay, I'm gonna share my screen on here and also open the connection if you guys want to have a better experience. My machine is called Chichester. I'll type it here. And if you want to connect to my machine, you need to type this line of code in the terminal. And the password is password.
Nice password.
Let me know when you guys are connected or ready to go, and I'll start. I don't see anyone connected on the terminal. Are you all guys okay with just the screen share?
Yeah, we're okay with the screen share.
Okay, cool, that's fine. Then I'll start. And cool, so I have a template that I've made in my Alice R&D. I will send the path later after the meeting. So it's just in Alice R&D, Houdini, under my name. You will find in under L, Crowd templates. I would say always pick up the latest day by day, because it's a work in progress. So every day you'll see some savings or updates. At the moment it's version 2. And in this template, you will see these packages. And basically I'm trying to split it through each type of assets for the Crowd. I have some notes as well that you can read through. And now I'll walk you through how to get started. So let's say I picked up a shot I did already, but I'm just going to show you again from the beginning. So you have your own shots. You just go to merge, and then you go to Alice, and then R&D, Houdini, then go to my user and merge the latest scene to yours.
Sorry to interrupt, but are we recording this?
Yes,
seems like it, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this will take a moment to merge everything. And then I would advise you to stay in manual until you load the Crowd package. which I didn't, by the way. I'm still in auto update. Just for informations, we don't have yet any way of releasing. We are working on that. But for now, you are able to run the cloth in a wedge, and then you can just render through Houdini, which is already set up for us. Okay, so now we have the scene. We can save it to crowd cloth. And you see version 8 because I'm already working on this one. Okay, cool. Let's go in manual. There are a few things here. So there is some notes that I say just because the setup is based on LODB, and if we ever get asked to lower the resolutions, we need to make sure that every point selections I have made for the assets needs to be adjusted. Some of the things are already being done, but it's always best to double check if we ever go through that. This is the first step to do, so we need to set the frame range. We have the TA episodic shelf, so you can go to the set frame range. And we need to give another 12 frames as a pre-roll. That is because the crowd releases 2 different files, 50 frames for the pre-roll and then the shot range. And this tool that we have, TA set range, is at 30 frames from the handle, which is 8 frames already. So we need to set another 12 frames backwards. And if you're not sure for that, you just go to the crowd prep. And here, this node will tell you exactly at what frame we need to start. So for example, now it's 975. And just extend the timeline. Cool. So I have the crowd package here, which we don't use, but I just put it here so that we can see if crowd updates something, because otherwise we wouldn't see any update. So now it's version 3, and we know. In the agent setup, it's already all set for us, and I have all the configurations of each asset that we need to use with the respective versions. One thing is that do not change the version that it's written here, because I had to export a different LODs for the assets for us compared to crowd, and they're all hard-coded to their respective versions. So if you do, by any reason, load them back again, you need to adjust the version number to not be the latest, but this specific number that it's here. That said, we can start. And so first thing is to go into the crowd prep. And in this TA crowd package reader, the show is CLF. You need to plug in the asset. So in this case, we go to the foreground, you go to the version and say gather. This will make just a string path, which then the tool uses to gather pre-roll and shot together. So now I'm switching to auto update, and it will basically gather the crowd. There might be some times that we have some issues in this tool specifically because of the frame range, which is, let's say the crowd releases on a Monday a shot that starts from 1001, but then editorial changes the frame range to 1005, which means that my tool will adjust based on the new frame range from the hub, but the crowd hasn't been released with the new frame range. In that case, the things are two. Either we ask crowd to release appropriately with a new frame range, or if we are in a rush or any other reason, we can adjust just the frame range ourselves manually and just make it work. Guys, and I can already tell that they're not in full pre-roll at this moment. So you can do two things. One is just enter here, and at the top you have a get path. This one in detail attributes has a path that you can go check yourself to understand at what frames they released the first frame. So if you go to version 3, we can see the actual frame is 963 of the pre-roll. And if we go to the hub, we can double check. So this one, as you can see, the latest version is 1017, but the previous is 1013. So there has been a change of frame range here. if you go to the edit, we can then see the details of the frame range. So it says 1017, which would mean that we need to set it to 42 frames less than this. So that is 1017. Is it here? 975. Yes. Anyway, so because this last version 3 has a frame range that is different from the one that it should start, because as you can see, the last frame of the pre-roll is 1012, which is where is it? Here. Okay, so we can just go to 6.3. This is something we kind of have to adjust ourselves, unfortunately, but hopefully it will get fixed. So we go back to auto update. And there you go. These guys now look okay. And this is how the crowd comes in the pre-roll, kind of sitting on themselves. And then I would say, grab this name and replace it here and make absolute path. And say to version 1 and save to disk. If this save to disk fails, it's exactly for the reason I mentioned above, which is the frame range that might be clashing with the hub, so that we are missing some frames in this folder here. Maybe it says that 1012 needs to switch, but we don't have the 1012 frame, and therefore there is an issue. And I have here all the notes that explain that. So now we have the crowd that works in real time. And I have some variations that we are going to use later on. And here I have all the splits for each asset. So in this case, it is the Pterosaurus, which is here. And there is this one that fixes the legs, basically, to have like a sort of T-pose for us. It's automatic. It blends back to the original after a few frames. And these are all the variations of this asset. So this is the first step, and we've done it. So after the crowd prep, we need to go into the prep itself of the asset. So let's save. Okay, cool. So this is the general interface that you'll see in every asset with minor changes depending on the things I need to do. And what I'm doing basically is gathering each model here, which is already set, by the way. As you can see here, I have the asset, and it's already loading each LOD, which I saved in a folder in R&D asset dev, under my user, and LOD A, B, C, D. So this is here, and it loads every asset that we have here. Basically, what I do is getting the informations I've done from the hero assets already and transferring them here, which I have all my maps that I use for the simulation, which are a custom rest length, some pin for the wing, pin for the small wings, and the thickness for the cloth. Then I have another attribute which is for a post-sim blend, which I'll show you in a moment. Yeah, there we go. And then we have the shape of the wing that we blast and remesh later. Okay. I mirror all the maps and then I transfer them to the different LODs so that it's all procedural. And then through this controller, you have a few options. You can choose the minimum and maximum rest length, the pin, which I would say just keep it to default as it is now, and a blend. So the only one you might want to touch is increasing this value if you want. And these are all just the nodes that are connected to the controller. So the rest length, fit blend, and maps. We have a Houdini scale, set PREF. I set some groups left and right for the body. And then here I have another one, which I use the skeleton of the bird, which now, let me just find it here. So, sorry for the noise. Okay, so we got the crowd here, and I basically just rename and set a few attributes that I need. and this is where we get all the agents. This one, PT, will tell us how many we have, and this is being used for the wedge count and all the wedging attributes basically. Then we have here this one, which seems to be linked. Yeah, let's see, where is it working? It is not working. Let me find the reason for that.
Yeah, but for now, as in like just find, I guess what we have to find.
Yes, this is the reason. Sorry, I'll fix that. Okay. So we have now here, you can choose, and you'll get the different guys, overall. So let's just pick one for now. And how it works is that we'll iterate through every single one of them and unpacking the asset itself, and then just deleting some attributes, convert, set the Houdini scale, and then we will copy the pref and the map of the wing from the, let's say, the default asset to our crowd one. And then we have the split to get away all the nail, eyes, and everything. And this is where we start our work. So this is where I get the map of the wing on the actual body to then split it out here. So here we have only the wing. On the right side, we have a collision that gets generated procedurally, and we don't need to cache this. It's light enough to just stay live. And this is how it comes out. For this asset, I decided not to simulate the small wings at the back because I think they're not necessary. But if we ever get asked to, we just need to paint the map at the top left here. So we need to adjust this map and paint and include these small wings. And it should all adjust procedurally. Then for this asset specifically, I also did a little light sample volume, BDB, to fix some intersections between the elbow and the knee when the bird is flying or walking more specifically. So let's see if this one is the case. Let's see. Maybe here we can see some option. Okay, no, it's not touching yet, but basically this light sample here would push out any mesh that it's intersecting with each other. And this is how we get the collider. And this is an option I just kept off, but it's, let's say, an inflation that I use for the limbs, but we don't need it. I just keep it there because of the overall setup. Here we have the wings, where we start making them. So we have this one and the wings. Cloth creation should be all automatically in procedural. So we get the cloth. And then we have the cloth attributes, where we generate the pin and some other attributes. If there is ever any issue for the pin, this is where you'll find it. And you can just tweak this red one, the radius, to adjust it. But this should work all automatically. And then here, just pref, fix a couple of attributes, and wrap it back to the moving one. On the left side here instead, I just adjust a few groups. And because I need to split between the big and small wings, here I split by area. And so I have two different groups. And I copy them down to the actual wrapped mesh. So this is the out of the cloth. Here you can as well see the attributes that we have painted at the beginning from the maps. So you can see the custom rest length that it will adjust over time. And I didn't mention, so they are dynamically adjusted, as you can see. And this is happening thanks to these two purple nodes and this one. Basically here I get the bones from the left and I create a line. So if you can see here, this is the arm, and I basically compute the angle here, and I have a few different attributes that I use for different purposes. And basically, depending on what the angle of the arm is, it will go from 0 to 1 or 1 to 0. And this is what drives here my maps. So I'm basically lerping through the value of 1 and value of my custom map, thanks to the angle of the arm. So go back to this one, and we can visualize. We have this one. We have a pin as well that now is 0 because it's walking, but when it's flying, it's activated. Same goes for the small one. but I've disabled the dynamics of this. So this will be a static pin. Then we have a thickness and the other map that we use later for the post. So this is all the prep. I have a couple of notes as well that you can check. And this one is something that I turn off for this asset, but it's for others in the future, if you do use it. I use it to fix some intersections in the pre-roll for the assets themselves. So I push out the wings and adjust the frame range, so it's all procedural, to avoid any intersections without kicking back to animation for the clip to be adjusted. Down here, I have some explanation as well of what the attributes do, if you are confused. And this is all the prep. Once the prep is done, you can just go to the sim. And so we get the cloth and the collision. So here, this one and this one. And I have a treadmill. So I basically am reducing 90% of the movement and I'm bringing it back to 0 because they are far away from the center. So now this guy is almost on the spot. Whereas if I were to take this off, you can see, well, this guy doesn't move much. But basically, if he was flying, I would take away 90% of its movement. And I'm saving out an attribute called offset, which I will then add back here to bring it back to where it belongs. So you can again check here some attributes if you are not sure about them. And in here, I have the LOD selection already, procedurally, if we need to. And we can go to the sim itself. So this is just thickness multiplied by our attribute, and then we have some settings that they should all work by default. Then we have an attach as well for this one, so it gets attached to the body. And then we have the small pins, which are, I'll show you the little guys, and they're just static, so it's a constant pin, it doesn't get adjusted. And then we have the big pins as well here, which are the big wings. And this is adjusted procedurally. And it is because it's multiplied by this attribute, which then will be adjusted in the solver. I transfer here my dynamic attributes to the constraints, and the pin control is what will let you know to have them dynamic or not. I would say keep it always as it is. So with the big pin dynamic and the small pins static. If we ever need to change it, it's all connected, so you just need to switch this off, and it will change the method of simming. Basically, I have inside the solver an option here for the speed limit, which will have a different type of mesh, but I would say that for the crowd-wise, this is not something we will use, or if we do, it will be on specific characters on a package, something that they ask us to do. It's just to avoid some snapping of the mesh when it's flapping and walking, basically the transition. Here I have the dynamic small pins, which is not activated because the switch is at 0. And here I have the dynamic big pins that are always on. And then I copy back the offset attribute and I cache it out, which we can do quickly. Let's go version 2. Okay, what do you want? Okay, let's just do this. One also thing is that this caching locally, it's something that we do only for a test. We don't cache locally anything for these guys because we need to wedge on the farm. So I'm just gonna kick it off. Okay, so let's wait a moment. While this works, I'm gonna just put it here so that we can check it. You have here a farm, which is always on, and you can also visualize the ACP that you're working on, or iterate through them. While we wait for the cache, I'll just explain what's down here. So I'll bring you back to the original position, and in this tool specifically, I have a few post-sim operations that we can do. So the first one is something that we don't need to use specifically, because this is something that we would use once we change the method of the pin. So because we are sticking to the dynamic, we don't need that one. The passing wing profile is something I already set. So these curves, I would say, keep them as they are until asked to change them. And this basically will set the profile of this wing as a different shape. Now I'm waiting for the cache, so I'm just gonna do this. Basically, what the tool does is from this curve, we kind of generate a new shape. Now, forgive my drawing, but basically, yeah, we have a smoother and more like Bezier kind of shape, procedurally adjusted. And it's all dynamic as well. So when it's flying, it will show the curve. When it's walking, it's not. And it's all activated here dynamically. If you want to keyframe it, you can, but because it's crowd and it needs to be a procedural, it's all dynamic and activated on its own. You can choose the strength of the curve and the height as well. Apart from that, you also have an inflation. So when it's flapping, it will inflate, but also there is a resistance when it's flapping upwards. So that when supposedly the wing shouldn't inflate when he flies up, but only when he flaps down. And then there is a noise, which all values should work just fine. And if you're asked to have a bigger noise, you can work between the max noise and the strength. And the speed as well, if it feels too slow. You can check all these things here. So you can check the profile without the lerp, because the first frame will not show the new profile because of the post sim that we do. It will just show after 5 frames. And I do specify that here. It will be activated 5 frames after the first. If you get asked to have a flipbook with the wind, you have this one, which is a treadmill of the very first frame. And this one should also almost be done as well. 10, 11, almost, yeah. The sim is very quick. It's like 4 or 5 minutes locally. And I would say probably 35 minutes on the farm, because it's a CPU, unfortunately. So auto update. And so now we have our guy here. And it's all walking. It's here. And you might have seen that it's not been here, but do not worry, because it's all in the pre-roll. And this is basically the pin disabling itself and then just becoming full sim. Apart from that, you also have an inflation. So when it's flapping, it will inflate, but also there is a resistance when it's flapping upwards. So that one, few frames about the profile that I meant. So if I go to this one, it takes a bit. So always, I would say, turn off temporary noise and inflation if you want to do changes to the profile. So if you go to this one here, you will see that now the profile is different. And you can choose the strength. As you can see, there is a limit for this, so we can't push it too far. By the values I set, they should be fine. And then if you want to check the noise instead, you can go here to the first frame and press play. It's real time. And you can see okay, how the noise is behaving now. You can increase it, change the frequency, and all those things if needed. This will be then applied to the actual moving sim. So yeah, you have full control over these values. Let's go back to a frame that works. Okay. Almost done. And so once you've done that, you just go to the OutSim cloth. And then down here, we have the blend to anim, which should all be automatic. And there you go. You got the guy fully blend with anim. The tail is broken in the asset, so I can't really do anything about this. And then there is a little blur on some areas, which you can then visualize by saying visualize blur. Or you can just visualize first what is the selection of the wing and the body. And this gets added, and they are together, blurring the whole body. If you do want to know what's happening in here, so this big box here is just a procedural selections of the body. Don't crash. Okay. Cool. So if you go to this visualize here, you will see what is being blend to anim depending on the frames. And down on the bottom, you will see that the wings are not, but then they become red, because this is also adjusted procedurally depending on the behavior of the bird. And if you want to change any of these values, the red nodes are the one you need to look for. So example here, I have some painted map that I blend to anim. I then have this poly extrude that it's basically the selections for the wing. I transfer those back, and then I have just a remap for the attribute itself. And here is the dynamic procedure to adjust them. And then they get just copied over to the actual body. And then here I basically lerp them back to final body mesh. So if I go here and I turn this off, you will see that this is me with the anim, and this is without. And this one, yes, that's fine. You can go here, visualize as well, and then this is now I just need to look into this. I just spotted it, so I'll just look at this after the call, and I'll save the scene, but it's a small hiccup. And that's all for the setup. So once you finish that on one single asset, so you sim one, it looks okay, the values seem working, you can just go back to this and go out, and basically you go to the output here to your Pterosaurus. It's all connected, and if you'll see, you have 27 wedges. And as well here, you can just take off these ones because we are not doing any of the other birds, and you can submit to the farm. A word of advice, it might take between a few minutes to even 1 hour to submit to the farm, depending on how many characters there are in the packages. This one, for example, is 27, and it took roughly 5 minutes to submit to the farm. But I had another scene with 100, and it took me 40 minutes to submit it. And today I'm running some more tests to understand what is the limit that we can get to. So the more information I will have, I'll pass just on to you guys. Once the wedge is finished and you want to check everything, you can go to the out here, and basically here in this pink yellow node, it will read back all the wedges. And as you can see, there is already some because I did it previously. What's happening is basically I get the single assets here, frozen in time, because I don't really need it to be moving. And I copy back the position from the simmed one here, where I clean all the attributes that I don't need. I just need the position. I give the normals, and this is the second wedge cache, which is, just to show, it's this one here. So the first is sim, and then the blend. You can again here control which one you want to see, and this is all adjusted automatically to load in all the wedges that we've done. And if you want to then to render, this already gets the full crowd, and you can just press render, and it will basically spit out with a motion blur a render for you. That's all. Just if we ever need to split the packages for the reason that maybe it's like 1,000 agents and we just cannot deal with one package only. I made an example here with just some nulls to explain what we need to do. So let's say we have, for this case, 75 agents, and I want to see 3 batches. So 020, 2150, 5175. You need to have a new sim cache node for the batch 1 called batch 1, and as well the blend, and then a MPC wedge reader batch 1. And the same goes for batch 2 and batch 3. What I mean by this is that in each sim here, this one would be called batch 1, and then you need to have a second node called batch 2 and batch 3. And on top of that, you need to adjust the numbers in the prep. So you need to activate this one and put the numbers that you need. So if you want to do the batch from 0 to 20, you say 0, 20, submit to the farm, and then adjust this number 21 to 50, and then do it, and then 51 to 75. You don't need to, let's go back. You don't need to change anything down here because this is all procedurally adjusted. So we always get the maximum number and the range and the wedges. You basically just need to adjust this blast and adjust the caches. So you need to put on a new disk cache, MPC more, cache, and then call this one sim pterosaur juvenile batch 2, for example. Leave aside the caps, I did it by mistake. Make sure that this is all geometry, full geometry, time blend, and nearest frame. So then you will plug this one here, plug this one here, submit the batch 2, and then create a third node for the batch 3, and plug this one here and submit batch 3. Because we're doing it in the sim, you also need to do the same cache in the blend. So I'll go to that. So just plug this one back here. As well as we did the batch 1 here, you need to do the batch 1 here. So this needs to also be called batch 1, batch 2, batch 3. And then we need to have 3 of these nodes for each batch, which then need to be linked to the respective wedge drop and MPC cache wrap, and that will load every single one of them. In that case, you might have to adjust the sample range because this is linked to the same one. So maybe as soon as you know how many you have, just break the link and keep it as it is. But this is something that we are hoping not to do. But I thought it was good to just mention if we ever come across this. That said, I think I'm done. So if you have any questions, this is your time.
Thank you, Andrea. Did everything make sense? Okay.
During the call, and also check whether they're actively whatever version they're
I think it'd be helpful. Oh, sorry. So you go.
Just to understand that.
Okay.
during the call, and also check whether they're actively whatever version they're
I think it'd be helpful. Oh, sorry. So you go.
No, I'm saying like just go through the setup and see if you're facing issue. Well, then switch back to you.
Yeah, sure thing.
Yeah, that will be fine. I think we have a record, so you go through the records again and go through the setups. If you're facing issue, then we can get back to you.
Yeah, any issue, just let me know and we can address it.
Yeah.
Since most of the stuff that you've gone over is procedural, it might be good just to show us the bare minimum steps for just doing a first pass, or assuming all the procedural stuff is going to not need changing. What are the steps for just doing the first pass?
Yeah, okay, so the first steps would be, well, load here the package just to understand every time we open the scene if they release a new version. Go into the crowd prep, load the packages, cache it here, and then go into the respective assets. So in this case, Pterosaurus. There you go. Nice. Okay. Well, I have this in, I'm not gonna open it anyway. So we load the packages, we go to the Pterosaurus, we make sure that everything works by checking these maps and make sure that the collider works as expected. Go to the sim, do one test sim on one guy just to see if everything is as it should. And if that's the case, just keep it to the farm and basically go to the out and press release. So it's a few steps really.
Great, thank you. And then we don't yet have the system for releasing the packages. So, but we can do renders, and then we'll have our caches ready for when we do have that. And in likelihood, the situation is going to be like we'll just release, instead of as a crowd package with a cloth cache inside it, we're just going to release the entire crowd as an animated model package, because software haven't got the tools yet for like putting a cloth cache into the crowd package from Houdini yet. That's something that can currently only be done from Maya. So we're going to probably do this in a more simple way.
Yeah, once we have those as well, I can just update the setups and let you know guys how to do it, or what are the steps to release correctly.
Cool.
Okay, I guess this is it.
So should we go through the shots, or what do you think?
I think all the shots it's the same brief, which is like, share again. We just run the sim on the foreground crowd characters. But yeah, visually it's just the blue ones, and we can send you a list of all the shots. But if I go through all the shots, it'll just be like, oh, these are the blue ones in this shot. And so, I think it's all right if we just send you a list. They should all be coded like this. Some of them we haven't got crowd to split apart because we're going to need a sim on all of them. So if there's any that don't have this like red, green, blue thing, then just ask and we can confirm. And then we're kind of out of time, so I guess I won't go into GLO everybody because this is just a task.
I will double check with Leila. Ideally next week, but I will confirm. I will send